10-year-old Emma walked into her uncle's motorcycle shop to drop off lunch and froze, her dead mother's face covered an entire wall, surrounded by Hell's Angels patches and the words, "Our fallen sister." Before we start the story, tell us wherever you're watching from. Tell us in the comments, what touched you most in this story? Emma Chen carried the paper bag carefully, trying not to spill the soup her grandmother had packed for Uncle Ray. The October air in Billings, Montana was already cold enough to see her breath, and she pulled her jacket tighter as she approached Iron Horse Customs, the motorcycle repair shop where her uncle spent most of his life. She'd been here before dozens of times, but always stayed in the front office where customers waited, playing on her phone while Uncle Ray finished whatever mechanical miracle he was performing on someone's Harley. Today was different. Grandma had been insistent, take the food directly to Ray in the back shop, make sure he actually eats it instead of letting it get cold on the counter. Emma pushed through the front door, the bell jingling, but the office was empty. She could hear the sound of power tools from deeper in the building, voices calling over the noise, the particular rhythm of men who'd worked together long enough to communicate in grunts and gestures. She walked through the doorway marked "Shop Floor, Authorized Personnel Only" and stepped into a world of chrome and leather, oil-stained concrete, and motorcycles in various states of disassembly. And then she saw the wall. The entire back wall of the shop, maybe 20 feet wide and 15 feet high, was covered in a mural. Not graffiti, not amateur spray paint art, but a carefully rendered portrait so detailed it looked almost photographic. A woman stood in the center, her stance confident, one hand resting on a motorcycle's handlebars, the other holding a helmet. She wore a leather vest covered in patches, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, her eyes looking directly out at whoever stood in the shop. Emma knew that face. She'd seen it in the small frame on her grandmother's dresser, in the photo album that came out once a year on the anniversary, in her own features when she looked in the mirror and wondered why her nose curved just that way or why her eyebrows arched exactly like that. Her mother, Victoria Chen, dead for 7 years, except here she was, larger than life, surrounded by flames and motorcycle imagery with the Hell's Angels death head logo above her and the words "Sister Vic Ride Forever" painted in bold letters underneath. Emma's lunch bag hit the floor. The soup container split open, noodles spreading across the concrete, but she didn't notice. She couldn't look away from the wall, from her mother's face staring down at her with an expression Emma had never seen in photographs, fierce, powerful, alive in a way that contradicted everything she'd been told. The power tools went silent. Emma realized the entire shop had stopped working, that men were standing frozen with wrenches and parts in their hands, all of them staring at her. Uncle Ray appeared from behind a lifted motorcycle, his face going pale when he saw Emma standing in front of the mural. "Emma, what are you? You're not supposed to be back here." His voice came out strangled, panicked in a way she'd never heard from him before. "That's my mom." Emma's voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body. "Why is my mom on your wall?" Ray moved toward her, his hands outstretched like he was approaching something fragile that might shatter. "Let's go to the office. We can talk. Why does she have a Hell's Angels vest?" Emma's voice rose, cutting through his attempts at deflection. "Grandma said she was a nurse. She said Mom died in a car accident on her way home from the hospital. She said," her throat closed up, words jamming against each other trying to get out. A man stepped forward from the group of bikers, older than the others, maybe in his 60s, with a gray beard and eyes that held the kind of weight that came from seeing too much. His vest was covered in patches more than anyone else's, and his presence commanded attention without him saying a word. "Ray, take the kid to the office. Now." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. "Axel, she saw," Ray started, but the older man cut him off with a look. "I know what she saw. That's why we're having this conversation in private, not in front of everyone." He looked at Emma, his expression softening slightly. "I'm Axel. I was your mother's road captain for 5 years. I think it's time someone told you the truth." The office was small, cluttered with invoices and motorcycle part catalogs, but at least it had a door. Axel closed it firmly, shutting out the curious stares from the shop floor. Ray looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Emma sat in the only chair that wasn't covered in paperwork, her hands shaking. "Your grandmother didn't lie to you," Axel started, pulling up a stool and sitting so he was at Emma's eye level. "Not exactly. Your mother was a nurse. She did die in a car accident. Those facts are true, but they're not the whole story." Then tell me the whole story, Emma said, her voice steadier than she felt. Why does she have a Hell's Angels vest in that painting? Axel exchanged a glance with Ray, some silent communication passing between them. Then he sighed and pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found what he was looking for. He turned the screen toward Emma. The photo showed a younger version of her mother standing between two motorcycles, wearing that same vest, her arm around a woman Emma didn't recognize. Both of them were laughing, genuinely happy, alive in a way that made Emma's chest ache. Your mother joined the Hells Angels when she was 23, Axel said quietly. Took her 2 years to prospect to prove she belonged. She earned her patch through the same process everyone does: loyalty, courage, commitment to the club. By the time she was 26, she was one of our most respected members. Emma stared at the photo, trying to reconcile this version of her mother with the soft-spoken woman from her grandmother's stories. But Grandma said, "Your grandmother knows," Ray interrupted, his voice rough. "Mom knows everything, she decided it was better if you didn't. After Vic died, after we lost her, Mom wanted to protect you from this life. She wanted you to remember your mother as a nurse who helped people, not as—" He stopped, struggling with words. "Not as what?" Emma demanded. "A biker? Someone dangerous? Is that what you think she was?" "She was both," Axel said firmly. "Your mother saved more lives than most doctors ever will, but she did it in ways that wouldn't make it into any medical journal. The Hells Angels have a reputation, kid. Some of it's deserved, some isn't. But what we do, what your mother did, was protect people when the system failed them." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Vic didn't just ride motorcycles and look tough in leather. She used her nursing skills to help people who couldn't walk into a hospital. Addicts, homeless folks, trafficking victims, people the world had given up on. She'd patch them up, get them clean, connect them with resources. She saved maybe 100 lives that way, maybe more." Emma processed this information, her mind spinning. If she was helping people, why did Grandma hide it? Why lie about who she was? Ray sat on the edge of the desk, his shoulders sagging. "Because the work your mom did, it wasn't always legal. She'd break into buildings to help people squatting there. She'd steal medical supplies from hospitals when free clinics ran out. She'd confront dealers who were targeting kids, and sometimes those confrontations got violent." He ran a hand through his hair. "The night she died, she was coming back from one of those situations. A 14-year-old girl had overdosed at a trap house on the east side. Your mom went in, stabilized her, got her out, and was driving her to a safe house when a semi ran a red light." Axel picked up the story. "The truck driver was drunk, going 70 in a 35 zone. He T-boned your mother's car on the passenger side. The girl survived with minor injuries. Your mother died instantly." Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. "So she died saving someone. She died doing what she always did," Axel confirmed, "putting herself between danger and people who needed protection. That's what the club does, Emma. That's what your mother represented." He gestured toward the wall beyond the office. "That mural isn't just art, it's a memorial to everything Vic stood for: courage, compassion, sacrifice." Emma stood abruptly, anger suddenly flooding through her system. "You had no right to keep this from me. None of you. Grandma, Uncle Ray, all of you. You let me think my mother was just some normal person who died in a random accident. You never told me she was a hero. We were trying to protect you," Ray said, standing as well. "Emma, the people your mother helped, the lives she saved, some of them came with enemies. Drug dealers who lost customers, traffickers who lost victims, bad people who wanted revenge. We didn't tell you because we didn't want those people knowing Vic had a daughter. We didn't want you becoming a target." "I'm 10 years old," Emma shot back. "What am I supposed to do with this information now? Just keep pretending I don't know, keep lying to Grandma?" Axel stood, his imposing frame somehow both intimidating and reassuring. "What you do with this information is up to you, kid, but you should know that your mother loved you more than anything in this world. Every dangerous thing she did, every risk she took, she did it thinking about you. Thinking about making the world safer for kids like you." He pulled something from his vest pocket, a smaller version of the patches Emma had seen on the mural. It showed a hawk in flight with the letters VC underneath. "This was your mother's personal patch. She wore it on every ride. I've been holding onto it for 7 years, waiting for the right time to pass it on." Emma took the patch with trembling hands. The fabric was worn, the stitching faded in places, but it had been cared for, cleaned, preserved, kept safe. Why give it to me now? Because you found the mural, Axel said simply. Because secrets have a way of coming out whether we want them to or not, and because you're old enough to start understanding that your mother was complicated, not good or bad, not nurse or biker, but all of it at once. He paused. Your grandmother made her choices about what to tell you out of love, but you deserve to know who your mother really was, what she fought for, who she saved. Emma looked at the patch, then at her uncle, then at Axel. The girl who survived the accident, the one my mom was driving that night, what happened to her? Ray's expression softened. She's 21 now, graduated from community college last year. Works at a youth center helping kids get off drugs. She visits your mother's grave every year on the anniversary and leaves flowers. The information settled over Emma like a weight and a relief simultaneously. Her mother's death had meaning. Had purpose, wasn't just a random tragedy but the final act of a life spent protecting others. I want to meet her, Emma said quietly. The girl my mom saved, and I want to know about the other people, all of them. Every person my mom helped. Axel nodded slowly. That's a long list, kid, but if you're serious, if you really want to understand your mother's legacy, then yeah, we can make that happen. That evening, Emma sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, the hawk patch laid between them like evidence in a trial. Linda Chen looked older than Emma had ever seen her, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. You went into the shop, she said finally, not a question, a statement of fact. I saw the mural, I saw Mom wearing a Hell's Angels vest. Uncle Ray and Axel told me everything. Emma's voice was steady despite the tears threatening to break through. Why didn't you tell me? Linda closed her eyes, her face crumpling with grief that Emma realized had never really healed. Because I was afraid. Because the world your mother lived in was dangerous and brutal, and I didn't want that darkness touching you. Because I wanted you to remember her as someone good and kind, not as someone who broke laws and fought with criminals. She was good, Emma said firmly. She saved people, that's what they told me, that she used her nursing skills to help people who couldn't help themselves. She did. Linda opened her eyes, meeting Emma's gaze. Your mother had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, but that heart led her into situations that terrified me. Drug houses, gang territories, places where a single wrong move could have gotten her killed. She reached across the table, covering Emma's hand with her own. I lost my daughter doing what she loved. I couldn't risk losing my granddaughter to the same life. Emma turned her hand over, gripping her grandmother's fingers. I'm not Mom. I'm not going to join a motorcycle club or break into buildings, but I need to know who she really was, not the edited version you wanted me to believe, the real person. Linda was quiet for a long moment, staring at the hawk patch. Then she stood and left the kitchen. Emma heard her moving around in the back bedroom, drawers opening and closing. When she returned, she carried a shoebox that Emma had never seen before. After your mother died, the club gave me her belongings, her vest, her patches, letters from people she'd helped. Linda set the box on the table. I put it all away because looking at it hurt too much, because every piece reminded me that I'd lost my daughter to a world I didn't understand. She pushed the box toward Emma. But you're right, you deserve to know. So here, this is everything I kept from you, everything that made your mother who she was. Emma opened the box with shaking hands. Inside was a leather vest, smaller than the men's versions she'd seen in the shop, fitted for her mother's frame. The patches told a story: her road name, Phoenix, the Hell's Angels' death head, various territorial markers, and dozens of smaller patches that Emma didn't recognize. Beneath the vest were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Victoria Chen, from people thanking her for help, for saving their lives, for giving them second chances. One letter, written in careful block letters on lined paper, caught Emma's attention. She pulled it out and read aloud, Dear Vic, I'm writing this from rehab, day 47 clean. You probably don't remember me. I was just another junkie you pulled out of an overdose 6 months ago. But you told me something that night that I can't forget. You said I was worth saving even if I didn't believe it yet. You said sometimes we need someone else to believe in us first before we can believe in ourselves. I'm starting to believe. Thank you for not giving up on me when everyone else did. Maybe someday I can help someone the way you helped me. Emma's voice cracked on the last line. She looked up at her grandmother, who was crying silently. There are 53 letters in that box, Linda said quietly. 53 people whose lives your mother touched directly, and those are just the ones who took the time to write. Axel told me there were probably hundreds more who never sent letters but remembered her kindness. She wiped her eyes. Your mother wasn't perfect, Emma. She made choices I didn't always agree with. She put herself in danger more times than I can count. But she did it because she genuinely believed that everyone deserved a chance, that no one was beyond saving. Linda picked up the hawk patch, studying it. This was her personal symbol. She chose a hawk because they're fierce protectors. They defend their territory, they care for their young, and they're not afraid to fight when necessary. That was Vic, protective, maternal even to strangers, willing to fight for what was right. Emma spent the next 2 hours going through the box's contents. Photographs showed her mother in situations that seemed impossible, standing with groups of rough-looking people outside shelters, sitting with teenagers in what looked like support groups, riding her motorcycle with the sun setting behind her. In every photo, her mother looked fully alive, present, engaged in a way Emma had never seen in the formal pictures her grandmother kept displayed. One photograph stopped her cold. Her mother stood next to a young girl, maybe 14, who was painfully thin with hollow eyes and visible track marks on her arms. But both of them were smiling, genuine joy on their faces despite the obvious hardship. Emma flipped the photo over, written in her mother's handwriting, "Jasmine, 2 weeks clean, she's going to make it." "Do you know who this is?" Emma asked, showing her grandmother the photo. Linda studied it, then nodded slowly. "Jasmine Torres. She was one of your mother's success stories. Vic found her overdosed in an alley, got her stabilized, then spent 6 months helping her get into treatment and stay clean." She paused. "Jasmine spoke at your mother's funeral. She was 17 by then, been clean for 3 years. She said Vic was the only person who ever treated her like a human being worth saving instead of a lost cause." Emma felt something crystallize in her chest, pride mixed with grief mixed with determination. "I want to meet her. Jasmine and everyone else Mom helped. I want to understand what she did." The meeting was arranged for Saturday afternoon at the clubhouse, a building Emma had passed hundreds of times but never entered. From the outside, it looked rough, a converted warehouse with motorcycles always parked out front, men in leather vests smoking and talking in groups that made most people cross the street. Inside was different. The main room was surprisingly clean, decorated with motorcycle memorabilia and photographs documenting decades of the club's history. But it was the people that surprised Emma most, not just bikers, but a diverse group of maybe 30 individuals ranging from teenagers to elderly, all gathered because they'd heard Victoria Chen's daughter wanted to meet them. Axel made introductions. "Emma, these are some of the people your mother helped over the years. They wanted a chance to tell you their stories, to make sure you understood what Vic meant to them." A woman in her 40s stepped forward first, her voice steady despite obvious emotion. "My name is Rebecca Martinez. 15 years ago, I was in an abusive relationship that nearly killed me. Your mother found me in an ER where she was volunteering, saw the pattern in my injuries, and instead of just treating me and sending me home, she connected me with the club's domestic violence network. They helped me disappear, gave me a new start. I'm a social worker now, helping other women escape the same situation. Your mother saved my life and showed me how to save others." The stories continued, each one revealing another facet of her mother's work. Marcus, now 26, had been a homeless teenager when Victoria found him sleeping in a hospital parking garage. She'd gotten him into a youth shelter, helped him get his GED, connected him with job training. He now managed a construction crew and volunteered with homeless outreach. Jasmine Torres was there too, the girl from the photograph. She was 21 now, studying to be a counselor, her arms still bearing faint scars but her eyes clear and focused. "Your mom didn't just save my life," Jasmine said, kneeling down to Emma's level. "She made me believe I deserved to be saved. She'd come check on me during her nursing shifts, bring me food, help me with homework I'd missed. She never judged me for the things I'd done to survive. She just saw someone worth fighting for." Emma listened to story after story, each one building a picture of her mother that was so much bigger than the quiet woman from her grandmother's sanitized version. This Victoria Chen had been fierce and compassionate, had broken rules when rules meant letting people die, had used her nursing skills as a weapon against the systems that failed vulnerable people. One man, older than the others, stood near the back. He'd been quiet throughout all the other testimonies, but Axel gestured for him to speak. "Emma, this is Detective James Morrison. He worked with your mother on several cases." The detective stepped forward, his expression serious. "Your mother operated in gray areas that sometimes made my job complicated. She'd tip us off about trafficking operations, about dealers targeting kids, about situations that needed law enforcement intervention. But she'd also handle things herself when she thought we'd be too slow or too bound by procedure." Morrison pulled out a worn notebook, flipping to marked pages. "I have documentation of at least 40 cases where your mother's intervention directly led to arrests, to kids being removed from dangerous situations, to lives being saved." Officially, the department couldn't acknowledge her work because much of it involved breaking laws. Unofficially, several officers, including myself, considered her one of our most valuable assets. He closed the notebook. "The night she died, she was transporting a 14-year-old girl who'd overdosed at a known drug house. Your mother had gone in alone, stabilized the girl, and was bringing her to a safe house when the accident occurred. The truck driver who hit them was later found to be intoxicated with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. He's serving 15 years. Morrison's voice softened. "The girl your mother was saving, her name is Kayla Hudson. She's here today." A young woman Emma hadn't noticed before stepped forward from the crowd. She was petite, maybe 5'2", with careful eyes that suggested she'd seen too much too young. She looked at Emma with an expression that mixed gratitude and guilt. "I was the last person your mother saved," Kayla said quietly, "and I've spent 7 years trying to figure out how to live in a way that honors that sacrifice. I'm studying emergency medicine now, want to be a paramedic, want to help people the way your mom helped me." Emma stood up from her chair, crossed the space between them, and hugged Kayla. Both of them were crying, holding onto each other, two people connected by tragedy and survival and the legacy of a woman who'd believed everyone deserved a second chance. After the formal testimonies ended, people approached Emma individually, sharing smaller moments. The homeless veteran your mother bought breakfast for every Tuesday. The sex worker she treated for infections without judgment or police involvement. The teenager she taught to change motorcycle oil because he needed job skills and confidence. Each story added another layer to Emma's understanding. Her mother hadn't been a saint. Several people mentioned her temper, her stubbornness, her willingness to threaten people who hurt those she protected. But she'd been undeniably good, channeling her fierce protective instincts into saving people society had written off. Uncle Ray appeared at Emma's side, handing her a bottle of water. "Overwhelming, incredible," Emma corrected. She looked around the room at the 30-plus people who'd rearranged their lives to come tell a 10-year-old girl about her mother. "I spent 7 years thinking Mom was just a nurse who died tragically. Now I find out she was," she struggled for words. "A hero," Ray finished. "Yeah, and that's why your grandmother was scared. Heroes in our world don't usually get happy endings. They die young doing dangerous things for people who can't protect themselves." He squeezed her shoulder. "But maybe that's not what matters. Maybe what matters is that they did it anyway." Axel called for everyone's attention and the room quieted. "I want to show Emma something. The rest of you are welcome to come or give us privacy, Emma's choice." Emma looked around the room at all these faces, these lives her mother had touched. "They can come, they're all part of this." Axel led the group outside to where 30 motorcycles sat in precise rows, but he walked past all of them to a garage at the back of the property. Inside, covered with a tarp, sat a single motorcycle. "This was your mother's bike," Axel said, pulling the tarp away to reveal a pristine Harley-Davidson Sportster, custom painted in deep purple with silver flames. She called it Phoenix because she said it represented rising from ashes, getting second chances. Emma walked around the bike, running her fingers along the leather seat, the chrome handlebars. It was smaller than the other motorcycles she'd seen, built for someone her mother's size, and it was beautiful. "We've kept it maintained," Ray said. "Changed the oil, kept the battery charged, made sure it would still run if," he stopped. "If what?" Emma asked. "If you ever wanted to learn to ride it," Axel finished. "Your mother made us promise something before she died. If anything ever happened to her, if you ever found out about this life and wanted to be part of it, we'd teach you. Not to be reckless, not to put yourself in danger, but to understand what riding meant to her. Freedom, power, control over your own path." Emma was 10 years old. She couldn't legally ride a motorcycle for another 6 years. But standing there looking at her mother's bike, she felt something shift inside her, a connection to a woman she'd barely known but was starting to understand. "Can I sit on it?" Emma asked. "It's yours," Axel said simply. "Or it will be when you're old enough. Until then, we'll keep taking care of it." Emma climbed onto the seat, her feet not quite reaching the ground, her hands barely able to grip the handlebars. But sitting there on her mother's motorcycle, surrounded by people her mother had saved, Emma felt closer to Victoria Chen than she ever had, looking at sanitized photographs and listening to edited stories. Kayla approached, touching the bike's fuel tank gently. "Your mom let me sit on this the night she saved me. I was so sick, so broken, and she made me get on the bike and hold the handlebars. She said everyone needs something to hold onto when they feel like they're falling, something solid and real." She looked at Emma. "That's what your mom was for so many of us, something solid when everything else was chaos." Over the next 3 hours, Emma learned practical things: how to check oil levels, how to properly clean chrome, the basics of motorcycle maintenance that her uncle and the other bikers insisted were essential knowledge. But more importantly, she learned stories. About the time her mother had ridden through a blizzard to deliver insulin to a diabetic homeless man. About the teenager she'd physically carried out of a burning building while everyone else ran away. About the countless small acts of kindness that never made headlines but changed individual lives completely. As the sun began setting and people started leaving, Emma sat on the clubhouse steps with her grandmother, who'd arrived an hour earlier after closing her shop. Linda looked at the motorcycle visible through the open garage door, at her granddaughter's face full of newfound understanding, and sighed. "I tried so hard to protect you from this," Linda said quietly. "I thought if I could just keep you away from the club, from the danger, from everything that took your mother away, I thought I could keep you safe." "I am safe, Grandma," Emma replied, "but I'm also alone with who Mom really was. I spent 7 years mourning someone I didn't really know. Now I get to mourn the real person, complicated and fierce and amazing." She leaned against her grandmother's shoulder. "I'm not mad at you for trying to protect me. I understand why you did it, but I'm glad I found out." Linda wrapped her arm around Emma. "Your mother would be proud of you for having the courage to seek truth even when it's complicated. For wanting to understand instead of just accepting the easy answers." She paused. "But Emma, understanding this life doesn't mean you have to live it. You can honor your mother's memory without putting yourself in danger." "I know," Emma said. "But I also think I can honor her by helping people, maybe not the same way she did, but in my own way, when I'm older." The hawk patch was in her pocket and she pulled it out, studying it in the fading light. What did the hawk mean to her, really? Axel, who'd been standing nearby, answered. "Hawks are fierce protectors. They defend their territory ruthlessly but also mate for life, care for their young with absolute devotion. Your mother saw herself that way, protecting people with everything she had while never forgetting who mattered most." 3 months later, Emma stood in front of her 5th grade class for a presentation on personal heroes. While other students talked about celebrities or athletes, Emma projected a photo of her mother on the bike, wearing her vest, looking powerful and alive. "My hero is my mom, Victoria Chen," Emma began, her voice steady. "She was a nurse who used her medical skills to help people that the system ignored. She was a member of the Hells Angels who protected the vulnerable and saved lives. She died 7 years ago helping a teenager who'd overdosed, and that teenager is now studying to be a paramedic." Emma looked around at her classmates' surprised faces. "For a long time, I didn't know any of this. I thought my mom was just a regular nurse, but she was extraordinary. She taught me that helping people isn't always pretty or legal or safe. Sometimes it means breaking rules because the rules are broken. Sometimes it means putting yourself at risk because someone else has no one." She held up the hawk patch her mother had worn. "This represents her, fierce, protective, always fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. She wasn't perfect, but she was good, and she showed me that being good sometimes means being dangerous to the people who hurt others." The classroom was silent when Emma finished. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, had tears in her eyes. "Thank you for sharing that, Emma. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman." That evening, Emma visited her mother's grave for the first time, knowing the full truth. She laid fresh flowers at the headstone and placed a photo beside them, her mother on the motorcycle, surrounded by people she'd saved, wearing her vest with pride. I understand now, Emma whispered. Why you did what you did, why you risked everything, and I promise I'll find my own way to help people. Maybe not on a motorcycle, maybe not with the club, but somehow. Because that's what you taught all of us, that everyone deserves someone fighting for them. Victoria Chen saved 53 documented lives and countless more that never wrote letters. Her daughter rides that purple Sportster now, visiting the people her mother helped, carrying forward a legacy of protection that doesn't fit neatly into any story but changes the world anyway. If this reminded you that heroes wear patches and leather while the world looks away, subscribe and share. Comment Phoenix if you believe second chances are worth fighting for.